episode 159 of Girl Take the Lead, where each week we explore womanhood and leadership. And I'm your host, Yo Kenny. Irene Sim joins us to discuss some topics I think you'll find interesting, like the power of emotions, new thinking habits, systemic bias and racism, and emotions and ego. Such good stuff. Irene is the managing director of Coaching Alliance Group, an accredited executive leadership coach, mentor, and facilitator. Her career is amazing. She was the inaugural chief of staff at APEC and first Asian woman to be promoted to the senior executive service of the Australian Treasury and the Australian Taxation Office. And she was the first Asian woman that the Australian Treasury posted overseas diplomatically as the Minister-Counsellor to China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Enjoy the listen. Here you go. So welcome, Irene, to Girl Take the Lead. We are so excited to have you with us, and you've come so far to join us. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me. And I am excited to be here. Loving this technology that allows us to connect from, so far, as you say.
Yeah, because you're coming into us from Australia, everybody. And we've had a few guests come from Australia. And I think the hardest and most challenging thing is just getting our time zones right. But with us changing time, you changing time, it's just like, where are we again? But why don't we start, if you would please introduce yourself to the listeners so that they learn about you.
Okay. Hello, listeners. I am Irene Sim, an Australian living in Canberra, Australia. Where is that? That's the capital of Australia, but it's a very small town, really, and it's called the Bush capital. I'm an immigrant to Australia, originally from another small town, this time in Ipoh, a town called Ipoh in Malaysia. I'm the eldest daughter of a single mother in Malaysia, and I grew up as that. And you can imagine the challenges that I faced and my family faced at that time, because single mothers were not a thing. So you can imagine there were, anyway, lots of opportunities to learn from my perspective. Ethnically Chinese, a member of a minority race in Malaysia, where I grew up, and in Australia, where I am. What else? I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I have two.
And coach, right? You've been coaching.
And I've got two daughters. Yes. So I'm introducing the background to this because it is central to the fact that I've had this amazing career. I'll leave people to have a look at my LinkedIn profile if you want to find out more.
Right.
But the career that has exceeded my expectations. And today I'm a coach. At one point where I looked back and thought that I have a lot more to give, and I have a particular story to share. And so to give back, really, in what do you call it, to honor the people who have supported me along the way.
Yeah, well, definitely. You have so much to offer, your expertise and your just who you're being. And I know we share a common passion around emotions, and our listeners love learning about emotions. I know you had some interesting things to say about that. What are your thoughts about how emotions play a role in our leadership?
Emotions play a central role in our leadership. The fundamental point about emotions, I think your listeners, you've been talking to your listeners about emotions. I mean, the fundamental point is that emotions are neither good nor bad. You know how we talk about emotions as positive or negative, implication right. being that negative is bad, positive is good. On the contrary, I look at emotions as being comfortable or uncomfortable. But whether they are comfortable or uncomfortable, they are important signals from us to ourselves to guide us to our North Star, to guide us to our values and the kind of leader we want to be.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
around,
kind of input that we can see about ourselves, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So the tendency to avoid acknowledging our emotions means we are operating without that important intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess that helps us be more resilient when we're able to look at those emotions, accept them, and
Mhm.
then keep moving on from them, like almost let them pass, understand them more.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I would take it further. I would say accept them and allow them, but then do something with them.
Mm,
And the role and when that process of accepting is important because I we have a tendency, myself included, to be annoyed at ourselves for being, upset or to be uncomfortable or to, I'll use the word, scold myself for
mm,
feeling this way, telling myself I shouldn't feel like that,
right.
and telling myself to suppress those things. When I say instead of doing that, we lean into that and just accept and honor that that's what our intel, our inner intelligence system is telling us. But instead of just letting them pass, look at what it is that our emotions are saying to us
Mm,
about. Usually when our emotions are uncomfortable, they're trying to convey to us about something that is important to us, something that we need, that we are not, our needs are not being met.
right.
Yeah. So we can lean into that, interpret those emotions, and then make conscious choices about what we need to do to get our needs met, say,
Mhm.
or to act in accordance with our deepest values, for example.
Right. So if we kind of pull a thread at some of those emotions and we start looking at thoughts that might be underneath that,
Mhm.
right? And beliefs. What are
Yeah.
some of when you're coaching, what are some of the ways you help your clients shift those?
So that's connected to having uncomfortable emotions, and the first step is to acknowledge the emotions, right?
Mhm.
And then to unpack that and see what are the thoughts that I'm holding that are underpinning
Mm,
these emotions. So, for example, something like someone gives me feedback on a piece of work that I've put so much effort into, and they give me critical feedback about it. The habitual, and these are patterns, by the way. So the
mhm.
habitual thought might be to be defensive about it and say, "Oh, do you even know what you're talking about? Oh God, are you criticizing me?" Averse some of those thoughts. And why are you picking on me? Don't you know I've
Right.
worked hard on this?
I've had those thoughts a few times,
Yeah.
Irene.
And of course, that those thoughts are in sync with our feelings of upset, embarrassment,
Mm.
um,
Shame.
shame, defensiveness,
Mhm.
discomfort.
Yeah.
Right? And so the first step to being adept at tapping into your emotions for the intel is to acknowledge all these things and to unearth all these things. What's making me uncomfortable? What are the thoughts? What are the assumptions I am making about either myself or the other person?
Mhm.
Oh, by the way, um, I probably also add into that the thought that, oh my God, I'm not good enough. I've worked
Mhm.
so hard and it's still not good enough. So maybe I'm not good enough.
Right.
Yeah. So because
That's that personal, taking it very personally.
yeah, yeah. So I then coach my clients to acknowledge all that, and then to reframe those thoughts. And so a reframe in that example might be, number one, this is not about me, definitely not about my worthiness, because my worthiness is never in question. Point number one, always in any reframe in a situation like that. And then another reframe might be, what is the issue that the other person is referring to? What is the issue? So separate the person, that is me, from the issue. What is the issue? What is the person, what needs to be improved? What are they seeing that I am not?
No.
Right?
Or I would also add, what are you seeing that they
Yes.
are not?
And then what am I seeing that they are not?
Right, right.
Yeah? But you notice that the tone of these reframe thoughts, they are not about I should be ashamed, I'm not good enough, or they are being picky, they are being mean, or all
Right.
sorts of, So it's not about personalizing it to them or to me. Right? It's about focusing on the issue. What needs to be better? I'm seeing X. What are you seeing?
Yeah.
Are you seeing a Y? Tell me about the Y.
Yeah, because I think sometimes we can miss the bigger picture when we're just focused on one part of it, and miss that, like I used to tell my daughter when she was a goalkeeper for the soccer team, listen, the ball got beyond all these other people before it came to you as the goalie, and that sometimes is how we see it, that it's our fault, but we don't realize, well, there was all of these other people on the field, on the team, that also had a part in whatever is going on. Anyway, I think that's really great advice.
Yeah. So again, in that example with your daughter, it just reflects, and I say the inclination, and it's something to do with women, and how we got, how we were socialized, when it's always about it's our fault because we bear this responsibility to to take care of everyone and to be the person to fix all the problems, right? We forget that
Of
there's
course.
a team. Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, I know another one of your big passions is, especially given your diverse background, is bringing cultures together.
Yes.
And I think that you have perhaps a particular lens on cultural bias and how we might work with that more and make it less less of an issue, because it's a big issue for many cultures beyond, Australia and the US. I mean, we're talking about the world.
Yeah. So my work is supporting women, but on top of that, I also coach organizations, and to learn how to connect across different cultures, right? And fundamentally, the reason we are even talking about this is because of the human condition, which is, I'll make a general statement, which is that you and I'll assume that, and you tell me whether you're right or whether I'm right or wrong. We are typically conditioned to see the world through our own lens. And speaking for myself, my lens is a gender lens, and of course, my lens incorporates my culture. I talked, the way I introduce myself,
Right.
my Chineseness and my state as an immigrant is central to my lens, right? And we look at the world through our own lens, and we assume that others either share that lens, or if they don't, they ought to. They ought to share that lens.
I
Does
can
that ring true for you, Yo?
I guess so. I think we're not attuned to our lens too much.
Uh,
We think maybe because you're all Australians or we're all Americans or that we have some kind of shared background. And to some extent we probably do, but there's a heck of a lot of diversity in that lens that, we cannot see.
mm,
And it's almost like it's invisible to us. And
yeah.
unless, like you're saying, we become intentional about it, it's just so invisible, though, how sometimes we can relate to each other. So, do you
Yeah.
help people like observe it more? Is that kind of what you try and do?
Yes, yes. So we have a lot of diversity in, as you say, and I've come to experience more and more that the people who bring a lot of richness of their lives, no matter what it is, whether it's race or gender or anything else, right? If they are free to bring that richness of their experience to the workplace or to teams that they work with or
Mhm.
any project, then that enriches the project because then we get really the power of diverse ways of thinking and perspectives into solving problems.
Right.
The reality is that talking about Australia, but not just in Australia, in the Asia Pacific. So I've worked in different parts of there as well. Every dominant culture thinks that that's the way to think about the world. And so what I work with people to do is to become more um, to educate to
Mhm.
educate themselves about their own culture and about and looking out for differences in other people's culture for the sake of building a bridge.
Uh-huh. I
Sake
love
of
it.
yeah.
And
So
is it sometimes through their um, DEI efforts, the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, or is it kind of a separate thing sometimes?
Um, so organizations here, I work a lot with the Australian Public Service, and so each organization tends to have its own diversity and inclusion
Hmm.
initiatives.
Hmm.
Um, but I work with leaders really instead of through the diversity and inclusion.
Ah.
Yeah, I think it's really important that diversity and inclusion or having an inclusive mindset, for example, is the job of everyone, you
Hmm.
know, the leader to set the tone and for everyone to also start to engage in inclusive ways.
Hmm.
And so to adopt an inclusive mindset, and an inclusive mindset, I mean something like being curious.
Hmm.
So, number one, moving away from the assumption that the way I see the world is the only way to see the world,
Hmm.
right? To pause that because it's a bit of we're conditioned. So that conditioning is we've been conditioned for a long time to
Hmm.
think like that. So to pause and say, huh, tell me more. What do you mean? So the curiosity, to inculcate habits of curiosity, um, and also to be non-judgmental.
Yeah. Well, that creates the safe space, right? I mean, if it begins from the top down, then everybody knows it's sincere and it's authentic. And I think it's great that you're doing that work with the leaders to help them create that space so people can be in it and know that, yeah, it's okay. When, I think I mentioned to you that when I was coming through the ranks, it wasn't okay to say that you were Mexican, and you had to try and assimilate. But now they don't need to assimilate. I think
Yeah,
it's just so much better. Like you're saying, we get the creativity, we get the best from the people performing in their teams.
yeah. But this bridge building is important.
Mhm.
Um, so actually talking about assimilation and you were saying about your experience. In my experience as well, coming through the ranks, I didn't used to say I'm an immigrant. I did not used to say I'm from Malaysia and and all of that. That was like in a separate compartment that not to be talked about.
Right.
I've come to talk about it more and more because I've come to realize that actually, as I was journeying through, many people were looking to me because I was the first woman, to be promoted to the executive in my organization and to get a diplomatic posting and etc. etc. And I didn't realize it then, but that my appointment gave people from other marginalized groups or minority groups hope.
Mm.
And I've only come to know that more and more as I've done this work, coaching the younger leaders, right? So there are many people who say to me, "Oh yeah, I remember you. You were the first blah blah blah," and I'm thinking, ah, I didn't even think about it like that then, right? Not too much anyway. I was busy, trying to, maybe there was a point in my career was when I was busy trying to assimilate. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
got
I
sick.
think I think it was part of the time. I mean, really, it wasn't good to be different the way
Yeah.
it is now, where you've got efforts, that give you a safe space to
Yeah.
talk together and to talk about common issues that could be you're having that someone else is having, and looking at establishing mentors and people to help you through the organization, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes. And from an organizational point of view, actually, as a leader, your job is to bring out the best in everyone, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
You to get the best, if we talk about it in economic terms, the best value for money from all your team members, not just the ones that are like you.
You.
Right?
Right. Right.
So yeah. So
That that
that
bias. Oh, I really like that
comparison,
person. I wonder why. Oh, they're so much like me.
yes, yes, yes. So that's our conditioning. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So it takes deliberate effort, as you say. Yeah.
And I guess, when we look at understanding, I think we talked a little bit about our emotions and our ego and, getting better habits. I think that's your lane a lot, the better habits. And so we can get better habits at diversity and inclusion and better habits, because I would think those emotions come up as a
Mhm,
result of some space and environment that we're in.
mhm.
And if we're safe or if we're not safe, and if we're fearful or not. Uh,
So there's a particular emotion. Well, we can call it an emotional habit. Or rather, there are particular habitual thoughts that bring about the uncomfortable emotions
right.
that that I think we need to put a spotlight on. Whether you are part of a dominant group, a majority group, like the powers that be highly assimilated, it applies to that person. It also applies to the person who doesn't fit in,
Mm,
right? The habitual thought that says the thing that's happening around me is about me. So if they don't like what I've done, like in my example, if they don't like what I've done, it's because they are picking on me, giving me a hard time, being unfair, being biased, right?
mhm.
Or the other way around, if you are the one who is privileged, you belong to the majority group or you have other privileges, the tendency to say, well, you are different, Miss Yo. You are strange. You you need to go learn more or something, making it about the person.
Yes. Yes. You're wrong. You're the
The wrong.
problem. You are
Yes.
wrong.
Yeah. And I I'd like Well, the most important thing I think we can do is to get away from the habit of personalizing it.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that everybody is really good and nobody is being biased and all that. I am not saying that at all. What I am saying is that your bias is not my problem,
Mm,
right? So I'm not going to take the emotional load of your whatever it is or personalizing it to me and everything to become all upset and defensive and sad and embarrassed and ashamed and all that sort of thing, right? So I think the habit to make it about ourselves or the other person, that's something to practice reframing,
yeah.
to then instead say, what is the issue? What needs to be better? How can I serve better? What is the outcome I'm after?
Hmm.
What's the long-term goal here? What's the bigger picture?
Yeah.
So make it about the issue. So that's a habit that if I were to choose one habit, it would be that habit.
Yeah. So the one habit would be to break up that it's all about me.
Yep. It's all about people. It's all about me or them.
and the disconnection, because the minute we make it them and us,
Yep.
we're disconnected from each other.
Yes. Yes. I love the way you put that. Absolutely. So when we don't make it about us or them, uh, you and I, we are looking at an issue connected together.
Yeah.
We're standing on the same side, if you like, same side of together looking at the issue,
Hmm.
not blaming each other, judging each other, defending against each other, and all of that.
Yeah. That's very cool. Very cool. I like that a lot. I think that that allows for, you to align with another person, to almost, well, be, as you said, curious together about how to find new solutions or look at this a different way. Um, yeah, and address a breakdown.
Yes. Or even if in the end we conclude that there is no different way, it's either what you're suggesting or what I'm suggesting, let's say.
Hmm.
But by giving it making the effort to look at the issue in a connected way, like that, then both of us will move away from that, regardless of the outcome, feeling heard, feeling
Mm.
respected.
Well, Irene, I think that's even good for any kind of relationship we have.
Yes, yes.
Marriages could be a lot better if that was happening.
All right, that's another story. But absolutely, yes, all human relations. I mean, I'm looking at the world at the moment and, feeling quite a bit of despair about all sorts of things. But it's this tendency, right, that worries me about blame
Mhm.
and othering, looking for differences rather than looking for commonalities.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, and again, personalizing it, so that we are in defense attack mode.
Yeah.
Really would like, as I said, the one habit to break is the habit to make it about ourselves or the other.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty good advice. But do you have any other advice for young millennials and Gen Zers as they're moving along in their lives?
Yeah, I do. I thought about this by uh, reflecting on what I wish I knew a lot earlier in my life. I
Mhm.
come to you with all this. I talked about challenges and everything. Um, and I wish I knew that setbacks and failures are guaranteed.
Mm.
Your goal is to make a positive difference in the world. Right?
Mm.
I came into, into my career, wanting to make a positive difference in the world, right? I wish I knew though that these are like learning how to ride a bike. You've got to fall, you've got to fail, and then most importantly, you've got to get up,
Mm.
try again, and learn from that, and do tweak. what you're doing to actually get the bike, to actually be successful in your bike riding.
Yeah.
So that's what I wish I knew, because I reckon I went through a lot of angst because I didn't know that
Mm-hmm.
earlier. Um, and also, I would like to say to my younger self, or the millennials of today, that to own the fact that you don't know everything, because you don't. And guess what? You're unlikely to, and nobody does. Yeah. So
That's so true, though. It's
so
for
much
all of
energy.
us.
Yeah.
It
And
was,
and that and I also take it further and say, if you think you know everything, that's downright dangerous.
mm,
Because if I look at that mentality in the context of leadership, or in the context of growing up, or in the context of just getting better, thinking that you know everything or have to know everything just makes you fearful and insecure. You're constantly worrying about being toppled from your pedestal in your mind. And you imagine, can you imagine being led by someone like that?
mm. Well, I think you're always pretending too. Like that's the other thing, like, that you're pretending to know it all. And it's so much better to say, I don't know.
Yes. And
Right?
the power comes in saying, oh yeah, I don't know everything, but I want to learn. Tell me,
Yes.
what do I
Yes.
need to learn from you? So that is the X factor, being prepared to lean in to learn, and back to that curiosity mindset I talked about.
Yes.
Yeah, that is strength.
Yeah.
That's pure strength. Yep, and inclusion and all of those things.
Ugh. Well, I'm feeling very hopeful right now.
Oh, that's good. Me too, yo.
Is there anything else that you'd like to tell our listeners before we end our episode?
Yeah. So my big passion in as a leadership coach is to coach women and others who feel that they're not able to bring their whole selves to work, um, to talk to me, because my focus is on helping people to be leaders on their own terms.
Mm.
Right. So connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, Irene Sim, Executive Leadership Coach. Uh, yeah, connect with me. Tell me your story. Um, and if I can support you, that's great. If not, I'll cheer you on. This conversation has been energizing to me. I love hearing from others who have found ways to also be their own, mm, their own best champions.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good, Irene. And we'll have all of that in the show notes for our listeners in case they want to follow you and get in touch and, just get to know you more. I just so appreciate your energy and your light. I mean, it's like, woo, for those of you that aren't watching the video right now, I wish you could see her. She's just so lit. And you can just tell she's just full of positive energy for all of us. So thank you, Irene, for joining us today.
Thank you, Yo, and you've inspired me today too. So when I talk to someone like you, it gives me I am optimistic about the world. So thank you for the
let's,
opportunity.
let's get more people like us. All right. Thank you again.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening today, and we sure hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tell a friend about us. Join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead, or visit our website, girltaketheleadpod.com. We also have a YouTube channel where your subscription would be appreciated. Once you're on YouTube, search at Girl Take the Lead. And we've recently expanded into YouTube Music, where you can find a video of this episode. Here are the 3 takeaways from this episode. 1, let's look at emotions as being comfortable or uncomfortable, not good or bad. They can be our North Star, guiding us to act in alignment with our deepest values and to be more resilient. Accept them, allow them, and then do something constructive with them. 2, having an inclusive mindset is about being curious and moving away from the assumption of the way we see the world is the only way to see the world. 3, one habit is to break up the all about me and the disconnection from the other. We can look at an issue together rather than making it personal by blaming, judging, or defending against the other. This allows alignment. Our next episode will be a soundbite building on this topic of emotions and ego. The psychology undergrad was way too interested in the topic, and I found some great resources that I think you'll find interesting too. Please join us again, and thanks for being here. Talk to you soon. Bye.